Hey guys, welcome to Massive Iron Live. I have to get centered. You have to be perfectly centered in this box, or else we have, I don't know, ADHD or something, whatever, OCD, ADHD, a bunch of Ds. Welcome to Massive Iron Live, guys. How you doing? It is Friday, May 24th. We're almost to June, and I hope you guys have had a wonderful week. I'm here to answer your questions. I appreciate you guys joining me. Before we dive in, I'm here every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. I've been here, doing this 5 years now at least. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Just set a reminder that I'm here every Friday at 11. Post up your questions. I usually fire this up a couple hours earlier so folks can post up their questions if they can't hit the live during the time that I am on. Also, I want you guys to know that if you miss the live and you have a question, I'm always here to help. You can DM me at any time on Instagram at Ben the Barman. I answer every question. In fact, I was just answering questions right before I went on live. You can always email me as well at benthebarman@gmail.com. So a couple things before we get started. Number one, YouTube can do a good job of throttling your questions. So if your questions don't go through, try shortening them or rewording them. Sometimes YouTube does not like the specific words, or it'll filter things for random reasons. Sometimes your posts can be too long and YouTube doesn't like that. So if any of that happens, don't get frustrated. Just connect with me on Instagram. And I think this is going to be the last weekend I do the $6.99 yearly coaching special. I posted about it on Team Massive and on the comments section, the community section here. I also sent out a newsletter, and it's on Instagram. It's not like I'm not going to be doing a yearly special. The price is just going to be going up. When I launch my coaching app, when I launch my workout tracker, the prices of yearly coaching are going to go up slightly. Not for existing clients. Your prices will never go up. But the yearly rate will go up probably to about $9.99. So if you want a year of coaching, this is your last chance to get it this weekend at $6.99. It's amazing deal. Also, my book, Massive Omnibus, is going to come out on July 4th. That's the tentative date. This is basically going to be 3 books, or about 200,000 words. The section alone I have on intensity techniques and basic lifting banter and stuff like that is 20,000 words. It's really my life's work in a book, and I have that available. You can check that out on my website, Super Living Today. You just search Omnibus or Massive Omnibus. It's available for pre-order. If you pre-order it, even though you don't get it until, this is a PDF, the ebook, even though you don't get it until July 4th, you still get the massive bulking, the massive collection, the original Massive Iron book. You get all those PDFs for free today. Now, this is because it's a 3-book series, the PDF's a little bit more costly than my first book, Massive Iron, but the amount of information in this book is absolutely ridiculous. I'm super proud of it, etc. All right, enough of the commercials. Let's get into the talking about lifting stuff, which is why we're here. If you are new, I don't want you guys to be shy about posting up your questions. I'm here to help. So post up as many questions as you want. You're not bothering me. This is what I'm here for. So without further ado, let's get into things, shall we? Richard Murray from Scotland. How's it going, Richard? Join Team Massive. We have a community at teammassiveiron.com. If you're sick of Facebook, you want a good lifting community, I have it over at teammassiveiron.com. Join. Good morning, Team Massive. Yvonne, thanks for tuning in. For someone who has a biceps injury, would you recommend continuing to train the other arm normally? I would probably try to maintain it. There is some indication that when you train one side, that the other side receives some benefits. And we don't always understand the complexity of the human body, but there's really going to be no downside from my understanding. So I would do so. Eric, my downloads are ready. Massive Omnibus. Thanks for pitching that. And if you guys have any questions about that, just let me know. William Baker, client of mine, what's going on? Billy Baker, happy Friday. Cheers. Hope you guys have a wonderful 3-day weekend planned. You can get plenty of rest and relaxations. Good morning, Ernie. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Remember those who paid the ultimate price for our freedom. Amen. And thank you, Ernie. My wife has been, even though she's Australian, she was in the military. Her dad was in the RAF for 20 years. And just respect for anybody that's paid any degree of sacrifice for the opportunities that we have. Big Joe B, what's going on? Client of mine, good morning, Team Massive. Big Jonathan, good morning, Steve and Team Massive. Great response to the Dr. Mike video. Can we talk about that for a second? Can we talk about that? I'm going to bring it up, and we'll just have a little bit of a conversation about it. Hold on, let me find it. Dr. Mike made a video about rest in between sets, and I'm not going to get into all the stuff, right? But let me see if I can just, I can't pin the entire comment in here, but let me see if I can share it with you guys. There we go. I think I got it. Hold on one second. It can be difficult to get these screen shares. So Dr. Mike made a video about rest in between sets and science-based, looking at 9 studies, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not being dismissive, but I'm going to share with you my comment. And if you guys want to find this, you can find this on Dr. Mike's recent video. You can leave a response to mine if you think I'm an idiot or if you think I'm onto something. I said, regarding rest in between sets. And he said, basically something, I don't know, is your poor rest in between sets killing your gains? So I went on to say, killing your gains videos are killing your gains. Just a little bit of fun. I don't mean anything nasty by that. First off, the demands of every exercise are different, meaning when you perform a set of pec deck, it's going to feel different on the body than performing a set of squats, different on the body than performing a set of pendley rows or lat pull downs. The demands of every exercise are different. So we can't equate all exercises as being equal when it comes to how long we should rest in between sets. That's obvious, correct? The demands of every exercise are different. If we start to equate everything as being equal, we're dumbing down training to the ridiculous, and we really, really are. That's not science. That's ignorance. And that sounds like fighting words, but it's the truth. So it's the truth. I don't mean anything against Dr. Mike, but you can decide if it's the truth, and you can decide if I'm an idiot, and we can move forward. Beyond that, the art of training is so nuanced, and how the human body feels on every given day can be highly variable. So training programs are so nuanced. When you look at 100 different training programs, it's really hard to tell the demands until you're in the pit actually performing the program. There's training, putting together a training program and training is very much an art. Not only that, but the body can feel very, very differently on any given day, right? Considering these factors, the only thing killing your gains is over-analysis of rest, meaning that if you try to box in and create specific rest in between, times of rest in between sets, you're not really being fair to the process. The best advice you can keep in your toolbox when it comes to rest is this, and this is something I've shared over and over again on this channel for 12 to 14 years. Rest until you feel physically and mentally ready to attack the next set. Remember that sentence. Rest until you feel physically and mentally ready to attack the next set. That is the most important sentence in my world you will ever hear, ever need to know about rest in between sets. The goal of being in the gym, is to train hard. That's our goal. You don't need rules to do this or pseudo-science. If the goal is to maximize the next set, then you should rest after a set until you feel physically and mentally ready to attack that set as best as possible. Remaining reasonable, of course. We're not talking extending rest. We're talking normal, reasonable rest periods here that aren't forced. Again, the demands of every exercise are different. When we stack that side by side with the nuance that is creating and implementing a training program in the gym, the best rule for gains is common sense. If you want to maximize a set, hear me, give me an amen. If you want to maximize the set, make sure you're headed into that set at your best possible relative capacity. Optimal varies and will change depending on how you feel at any given moment within a workout. Amen. That was my response on a comment to Dr. Mike's video, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. Stein, happy Friday, Stein. Amplified Training. You can find him at Amplified Training on YouTube, at Amplified Training, on Instagram at Amplified Training, on Twitter at Amplified Training, and Amplified Training at Amplified Training. Hope you had an awesome week. You too. Massive conjugate program. I don't know. First, I got to get out my book. My head needs to release the book. Dumbbells and Donuts, a client of mine. Good Friday, Team Massive. COVID has kicked my backside, and I'm really sad to hear that. But I'm still just about living to fight another day. Just take care of yourself and don't beat that immune system down anymore. Big Jonathan, fun poll on the amount of sets per week. Did you gather any insight from it? Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to see what people are doing. Let me see if I can pull that up. I posted it on Instagram and on the old YouTubes. So let me see if I can post that up. I like doing polls because they're fun. And I like doing polls because they're fun. They're just interesting to see what everybody has to say. And, we're not trying to derive one answer. We're just looking at, what everybody is doing in the gym. Where is it? Where did you go? Did I skip over it? How many sets do you perform on a weekly basis? There we are. Let me present and share screen. How many sets do you perform on average? And we just got a ton of good information. 70 to 75, 70-ish, 180 to 250. What? Every now 180 to 250. Let's see, that would be 250 would be like 435 a day or something. I would be in the gym for like 3.5 hours a day. I'm not laughing at it. I can't even process that. Generally, you don't see a lot over 70 to 80. That's the interesting thing. A lot of guys under that, which is okay. I mean, 72 is kind of the average standard we look for in the massive iron world. And we do have a purple monster, by the way. All right. During the phase that you turned your life around and only ate plant-based and meat, did you allow yourself things like protein bars? No. No, I was literally scared to death. And I didn't think about it. I just reacted. Now, I will say something funny. I posted that. I posted on my community tab yesterday about, being over 40 and 50 and that you don't have to feel like crap. And I said plant animal based, and I forgot the and of course, like the YouTube comments, the small percentage of them, but they had to, they always have to razz you when you forget. What does plant animal based mean? Is he meaning plants that eat animals or animals that eat plants? They always got to be snarky about forgetting a word. It's always entertaining. Usually I wonder if these guys spend more time on YouTube than they do in the gym. During the phase that you turned your life around, no. I was eating a lot. I wasn't counting calories, but I was eating meat. I was eating, my treats, I would make homemade jalapeno poppers with cream and bacon. I wasn't exactly eating a low-fat, low-calorie meal, but because I had got away from the 7,000 to 10,000 calories a day I was eating, that was heavily processed carb based. And I went over to meat and fats and plant based. Literally, I would eat like a half a watermelon a night. I might eat five bratwursts with cheese and then a half a watermelon. It wasn't like I was limiting calories, but because I got away from all the processed stuff like the ice cream and the chips, my calories dove to about 40% of where they were previously. And I lost 30 to 40 pounds just immediately, just from making that switch. And then from there, I had to start keeping my calories under 3,000 to lose weight steadily. And I did. And that's when I started out at 346, and I really remember getting down to like 276 in like a couple of months just from changing what I ate. I lost a lot of weight. And then the other 40, 35, 40 came from, really dialing in calories. But I did not. My snacks at night were like tomatoes and Frank's Red Hot or pickles. One of the things I would do a lot, and I call this kind of a pickled mishmash, is I would take a cup or two of Greek yogurt. I would add in sliced pepperoncinis, sliced jalapenos, pickled onions, diced tomatoes, just a lot of food volume. And it might sound gross to some of you, but you can put a lot of food volume in there without adding a lot of calories. So I did a lot of crazy things like that. Big Justin Jones, good morning. Big hairy ugly dude and Team Massive. Is it bad to push your head in the bench while pressing? No. I keep my bench off when I'm pressing. It just feels more natural. It doesn't matter where your head is. It doesn't. Put your head wherever you want on the bench. The only thing that really matters is how you're controlling it down. You just want to have really good control during that descent on the bench, if that makes sense. Big Jonathan. After doing barbell overhead press, I had a numb feeling in the side of my shoulder. Maybe a little bit of inflammation. Now, when you're lifting, you're going to get the pump, right? You're going to get the pump. You might get a little bit of exercise-induced inflammation. You could get some stuff swelling up in here, you know what I'm saying? And that could cause some pressure, and that could cause some pressure on a nerve. I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to play a doctor on TV or Instagram, but there is that possibility. It was hurting to raise my arm above my shoulder. It was gone within 2 days. I wouldn't say necessarily a bad warm-up. You could have tweaked something, and you could have had some sort of a, inflammatory response. I do not know. I will tell you, though, unless it's recurring and ongoing, there's nothing to worry about. Aches, pains, strains, tweaks, twerks, and jerks are all part of lifting. So there's a lot of mysterious things you're going to run into when you're lifting. I wouldn't over worry about them unless it's recurring. We have to pay attention to them, but we don't want to over worry about them. Big Justin Jones lost over 10 pounds on the scale. My flex arm size is down about a half inch. What is all fat? Your arm size is going to vary, right? the arm size is going to vary depending on a lot of factors, but I want you to continue to weigh it every 2 weeks, every month, and you'll see trends. You're going to see some variance. You can even see variance when it comes to measurement, from a half up to a half inch. So don't worry about an aberrant or unusual measurement. Just continue to measure and watch the trends. It's definitely not muscle, my friend. It's definitely not muscle. The body is not going to lose muscle while losing fat. You might feel a little bit flat. You might feel a little bit glycogen depleted, but it is definitely not muscle. Big Justin Jones, once again. What exercises would you recommend for someone who doesn't squat or deadlift? If you're in the commercial gym, you need to do hack squats, leg presses, leg extensions. If someone is not overweight or not carrying around a lot of extra weight, you could get into the land of Bulgarian split squats and lunges. So those are your first best choices. Pendulum squats and leverage squats, if you have access to them. Smith squats, if you can do them as well. At home, it gets a little bit more trickier. You have squats, you have front squats. You can do goblet squats, but I really, they're okay. I don't feel like goblet squats are, it's almost easier to get the weight in position. It's almost harder to get the weight in position than actually do a set with 70. You know what I'm saying? So if you have more questions on that, just hit me up on DM or directly. Jonathan, stoked for the Massive Forge app. Will it show after or during a workout that you hit a PR? This is going to be well beyond anything else out there, my friend. The amount of features is going to blow your mind. I've been using it and working out the minor bugs for a month now. We're almost ready to go to light alpha. This is going to be far beyond anything else out there. This is made by lifters with one of the best programmers in the world. I can't tell you who he is. I can't tell you who he works for, but if I did, you'd probably poo-poo your drawers. Let's put it that way, right? So this is going to be far beyond. This is not just a workout tracker made for general population. This is a workout tracker built for me, built for you, the serious lifter. So have no fear. This is going to have more stuff than you guys can even wrap your head around. During the first year of serious lifting, what do you expect a lifter is able to bench? There is some variance whether somebody starts lighter on the body weight scale, heavier on the body weight scale, and relatively normal, and there can be some variance with age. There's a lot of variance here. So I can't really, I used to just throw out a number, but since I've been into coaching, it's far more complicated. Really, it's more about how much I want you to add during your first year. I think 75 pounds during your first year is a reasonable minimal goal. And I don't want to make a rule, but if we're starting at, some guys start at 80 to 90, some start at 135, some start at 165. I got a client that's been with me forever that recently returned to lifting that's doing 185 and says it feels light. So it's really hard to say, but instead of a weight, I want you guys to focus on adding a specific weight. I want you to focus on adding 50 to 75 pounds during that first year, at least 50. 75 is a much better goal. Adonis, when lifting, I drink a lot of water, but when I'm doing cardio, I don't really feel thirsty. It's normal if it's normal. Don't overthink it. As long as you don't feel flat energy-wise, you're absolutely fine. As long as you don't feel the water slogging around your body, you're absolutely fine. So you do you. It's normal is what normal is, as long as it's not abnormal. As long as you're not drinking anything at all, trying to prove some random point, you're fine. ATTC, what other exercises besides front squats do you recommend if hack squat is not available? We have leg press, leg extension. And those are obviously the main two. You could do Smith squats, which are a good backup exercise. Smith squats are probably, not everybody has a Smith machine, and I used to not be a fan of Smith machine, but it's definitely a good quad backup tool. And beyond that, you have Bulgarians and lunges. Eric, the beard of redness. What would your go-to shoulder exercise be excluding pressing movements? That is your shoulder movements, really. You remove all pressing movements from your shoulder plan and you got a hard path, man. I mean, because everything is basically that plane, right? So we have the elbows in that plane on a lateral raise, same plane, right? Just different hand position. You have upright rows in that plane. So those are really the two lifts that would shake out after pressing. And they are inferior lifts. That doesn't mean they can't help build muscle, but they're inferior to pressing. That's obvious. And I hesitate to say that because when I say outside lateral raise or a upright row is inferior to pressing, as my mom would say, somebody's going to get their undies in a bunch, right? Somebody's going to get all rattled. Their jimmies are going to be rustled. But it's true. They're inferior doesn't mean useless. It just means they're a step down on the food chain. Barbell Beauty. Happy Friday, Team Massive Crusher weekend. Same to you. Gamboni Law Office, dial 1-800-GAMBONI. Do you think that a peer machines produce the same overall look as I don't like doing this stuff. This is non-real world. This is mind fodder. This is mental ping pong. And I respect your support of this channel. I'm not, I'm just saying that when we try to get in debates, is a machine better than a pure free weight or equal? Best is both, right? That's what best is. So we're trying to create situations that nobody actually trains in, right? What's the end game? The end game a lot of times, and I'm not speculating on the question, but the end game a lot of times is, am I allowed to rely more on machines because of X, Y, or Z? We have to analyze the lifter and the situation and the injury history. You have to do barbell and dumbbell exercises. The best is not one versus the other. The question is not, can I build an equal physique with one compared to the other? The question is, why aren't you using both to build the best possible physique? Because that is the best. Best is using a wide variety of exercises. For chest, that could be a barbell press, a dumbbell press, a machine exercise like a plate-loaded chest press or a pec deck or whatever. It's a combination, because even if you don't do a bro split, there's, even if you do like an upper lower or torso limbs or full body, you're going to start out with generally bigger hitters, and you can't continue to do all major compounds moving down the list. You're going to have to move on. You're going to have to scale down. Are you hearing me? The intensity of the exercises. So whether you do that in a body part split, going big guns slowly, slightly down the ladder, or a full body where you're doing all body parts and you go slightly down the intensity ladder, over the course of the week, your exercise selection is going to be about the same. Does that make sense? Are you hearing me? So the answer isn't machines produce the same look as free weights. It's why aren't we using all these tools? That's best. So we're not going to get into speculation because it's just mental ping pong. It's just mental checkers. We're trying to create things for fun, and I get it. But the God's honest truth and the best answer is use all of them. Use all the tools. That is the best answer. If someone could only use machines because for whatever season in their life, they don't have access to a barbell or dumbbell, then maximize what you have, right? That is our only option. Maximize what you have. If you only have a barbell, and I've worked with plenty of people in a home gym that only have a barbell, and they'll be like, can I build muscle with only a barbell? That's not the question. The question is, how do you maximize what you have to get the most out of it? All right. AWS. I've started an upper-lower split recently, and I've lost about 1 rep on certain upper body compounds compared to what I was doing. It could be. I mean, there's going to be different fatigue profiles based on how you move the exercises around, but the body will adapt. It will acclimate. And whenever you get into a new program, there's going to be a break-in period, whether it's 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or whatever, where your body has to acclimate to the specific demands of the program because we're moving pieces around the board a little bit. Maybe now you're doing pendlay rows after squats, right? And your body has to adapt to that specific change. So there's going to be some acclimation period. Once that is done, then we get into the point where we can start to perform. We can start to run forward. Does that make sense? So it's absolutely normal. When I got into Russ Pause training hardcore in the late 2000s, it was a new type of program, and I really struggled the first 3 or 4 weeks to produce any progress. Once my body acclimated, boom, I ran like a scalded dog. I was hitting PRs nearly every week. It was just a wonderful thing. Jesus Martinez, how do I know when to bulk? Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take this 2-step process. Number 1, open your phone. Okay. We're going to open our phone. Okay. That's step 1. It might be a step 3. I don't know. Who's counting? I want you to open up the calendar. I want you guys to hear this. This is how we're going to figure out if you need to bulk. Number 1, open up your phone. Number 2, search calendar. Okay. There's my calendar. You got your calendar open? We're going to figure out if you should bulk. Number 3, look at the days of the week at the top of your calendar. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Okay? That's step 3. Number 4, and the final step, is the question, is the day of the week you're on right now, does it end in a Y? If the day of the week you are on right now ends in a Y, you should bulk. Sorry for my wasting your time, but it's true. I mean, if you want to build muscle, you need to bulk. You need to bulk. If you feel fat, if you feel fluffy, knock off 10 to 15 pounds and get onto the bulk. If you're morbidly obese, get unmorbidly obese and then bulk. We need to bulk as much as we can. A lean bulk, gaining about 2.5 pounds a month. Very sustainable. We never get more than 10 to 15 pounds away from our home base. And then when we do a quick mini cut and we return back to the bulk. So if you feel a little bit fluffy, knock off 10, 15 pounds. If you're morbidly obese, get unmorbidly obese. If you're a chubbelard, get unchubbelard. If you're a tubby blubby, get untubby blubby. If you're a little bit bulky because you went a little bit fat bulky, funky on the fat bulky, get a little bit unfunky on the fat bulky, and then get onto the bulky wokey. Hope that helps. But honestly, Jesus, if you need any help, you can just DM me. Jesus, I'm just, I don't know. I don't mean to be offensive when I say that. I sound like a dork, but just let me know. I don't know how you pronounce your name, so I just want to make sure I cover my bases. But you can message me, and I'd be glad to help you out with a specific situation. If you want me to, if any of you guys want me to analyze your physique, just send me a picture. I'll say your body fat percentage is about here. I think you're either skinny fat and you should bulk, or maybe consider cutting. A lot of this has to do with how you are feeling, right? So, if your current degree of fat bothers you, then it's probably a good idea to bulk, or to cut some fat, then bulk. Big Jonathan. Steve, last question. Thank you for your patience. Ask all the questions you want. Man, I live for this stuff. Friday is what we live for. Let's go. I want to help people. So last question. Thank you for your patience. If I hit my protein target and my last meal is dinner at 6, is it less optimal to have the next meal between 7 and 9 the next morning? Let me unwind this. You hit your protein target and our last meal is at 6. Is it less optimal to have the next meal between 7 and 9 the next morning? Okay, so you have a calorie target. Calorie target is your A1 goal when you're bulking. A1 goal when you're bulking. Okay? Carbs are protein sparing. So if you go a little bit over on carbs and a little bit under on protein, it's okay on a bulk. A bulk is forgiving because the prime directive is hit your calories and remain consistent. If your protein's a little bit over and your carbs are a little bit under, who cares? Right? We don't care about one day as long as our calories are good. Does that make sense? What I care about is not if your protein's under 20, your protein's over 20. What I care about is where your calories. I don't care where your protein target is. The only thing I care about when it comes to your protein is if you're consistently under your protein. Then I want to look at your diet and see if you're being a Slobocheski. Okay. A Slobocheski is a BHUD speechism. That means a fat blimp, slob, chip eating, ice cream eating, donut eating, Slobocheski. So if you're consistently under in your protein, we have to find out if you're being a Slobocheski. If you have too many junk carbs, maybe we need to adjust things a little bit. Big Justin Jones, are leg raises important? No, nothing. You don't even have to do ab work, really. Leg raises certainly aren't important. If you want to do ab work, do the ab work you enjoy. That's really as simple as it gets. Stan, how's it going? Just want to say hi. Thank you. I appreciate it so much. Barbell Bryce. I really love body part splits, but I also need to bring my leggies up. All right. This, my friend, is a program I created a couple of years ago. It was developed in a deep, dark, secret, highly confidential lab somewhere in the wilds of Alaska or Ohio or Siberia or wherever. Seriously, though, this is a program I developed a couple of years ago, and it combines body parts and frequency. Okay, so what we do here is you want to work legs 3 days a week, but you like body part splits. What do? We have a couple options. Number one, we have 3 training days. We can cycle between them, resting as needed. We have chest and tricepticons. Okay. We have back and bicepticons. And we have deltozoids and trapezoids. Okay. So chest, triceps, pushy whooshy, back biceps, and delts and traps. You're like, where's the legs? Here's the thing. So we have the body part split, but what we do with the legs is each training day we add in a leg exercise. Okay. So you do chest and triceps, but you'll add in a leg exercise. You'll do back and biceps, but you'll add in a leg exercise. You'll do deltozoids and trapezoids, but you'll add in a leg exercise. Does that make sense? Now, you could do a 4-day. You could do chest and light triceps, back and light biceps, delts and light trapezoids, and then junk, arms, rear delts, and legs as well. So you could train legs on all 4 days, or maybe do 2 leg exercises on the junk day, 1 on the other days, and you could kind of have a specialization program. That's a 4-day-a-week program. How's that? How's that sound? Is that pretty saucy and sexy? So that combines frequency, and that combines. I want to look up the name because I made so many programs. Combines frequency and body part, because I put this program together a couple of years ago and I actually forgot the name of what I called it. So it's out there somewhere on YouTube. Eric, the bearded redness. Oh my goodness. Is this even a question? It's bratwurst. It's 100%. You can get a burger. A burger's a good thing. You can get a burger everywhere. Everywhere you go, somebody's got a burger. Everywhere you go, in every restaurant, even you go to a Mexican restaurant, they got chicken fingers and burgers, right? Or some of them do. Bratwurst. Is there anything better than bratwurst? If you say there is, you're absolutely wrong. I could eat bratwurst every single day. So Tom from the gram of Instagram asked me the question for live video. Lighter weights for more reps versus heavier weight for less reps. Doesn't matter. This is a non-question, Tom, because lighter weight for more reps, whatever your definition of more is, 10, 12, 15, 20, whatever. Doesn't matter. Whatever your definition of lighter weight is, when you train hard and attack with progressive overload, lighter weight, say you're doing bench press, 80 for 15, 3 sets, let's just say you have to progressively overload and turn that into 200 for 3 sets of 15. And that becomes heavy ass weight. Wherever you start, whatever your thing is in training, lightweight has to turn into heavy ass weight. That is the law of the land. There's no staying at lightweight and doing reps and building muscle. If you're not progressively challenging yourself, you have no chance. All right. Live starts now. We're 45 minutes in. Let me get a drink. Let me refill my caffeine levels. All right. Keep your questions coming, guys. I'll stay on as long as I can. I'll stay on as long as you guys have questions. I don't got anywhere to go. I'm just going to work all day. Honestly, my wife gets home about 9 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night on Friday. She does like a dance. She does a lot of dance classes to stay in shape. So I'm going to be here working for another 8 hours. Let's do it. Rack pull. What's your opinion on alternating dumbbell curls versus doing them at the same time? I love personally the alternating dumbbell curl standing because I can lean in a little bit and focus a little bit more on that contraction. Now, there's a little bit of break in between reps, but you're working within that lane, so it's not really going to matter. You're going to progress within that lane, so it's not really going to matter. Some people like to do them at the same time, meaning they like to curl both arms at the same time. When I'm doing seated incline presses or curls, I can do either one. I can do either one, alternating or both at the same time. Doesn't matter. Whatever you prefer, as long as you can get that good biceps feel. The big wrath of Khan. When do I start using periodization? You don't need it. Powerlifting doesn't even really need periodization. When the weight gets really heavy, then you have to ask yourself, like once you get to about 90% of whatever you want to get at, strength and muscle wise, if you want to periodize heavy weight just to reduce some of the brutality and punishment on the body, you can, but it's completely optional. It really depends on how you train. Shelly Turner, we have a big announcement. Shelly, one of my favorite lifters from Team Massive, is now officially a client. I'm glad to have you on board, Shelly. Con, is there such a thing as a plateau? There is, but it's like overtraining. It's super rare. It's just super rare. Plateaus are usually dietary driven, like somebody not eating enough or eating inconsistently. Or they have, I wouldn't really call it a plateau. You could be doing something really dumb with your training. But most times it's just the natural slowing of progress. If you get to a 315-pound bench after 8 years, 6 years, whatever number of years, and let's say you are a super stud and you get to a 315-pound bench at 180 pounds of body weight, and you are the ripe young age of 30, and you want to continue to build your bench. So let's say you're 180 and you're benching 315. What could you expect? There is a possibility that you could get to age 40 and be benching 340 pounds. This is still better than nearly everybody on the planet in the gym elite, but you've only gained 25 pounds on your bench only in 10 years. That can be normal at a point. The deeper in you get, the harder it is to remove the next bucket of dirt, so to speak. That's not a plateau. That's human physiological reality, unless you're an outlier. So I'm not saying at that point don't try different things. And maybe I'll try the Larson press as a variable. Maybe I'll try benching twice a week as a variable, whatever. You certainly can, but you cannot expect these changes, every one, to just add 50 pounds to your bench. It does not work like that, right? It doesn't. If you're lucky, it'll add you just a little bit of a push. But you aren't going to go from 315 pounds on the bench to 415 pounds on the bench at 180-pound body weight unless you're a human freak. And then if you're a human freak, the tools you're trying probably aren't as important as your just base genetics and effort. Does that make sense? We focus on plateaus, but the reality is plateaus are like overtraining. They really aren't a thing. If somebody isn't making good progress, it's not a plateau. It's that their nutrition or their training sucks, right? That's like, like being in a car and wondering why it's not driving forward when it's out of gas and you're sitting in the passenger seat. That's what it's like trying to build muscle and strength when your nutrition stinks and your consistency or workout stinks. Does that make sense? Fat Chick in a Barn. How's it going? Thank you for tuning in. A client of mine. Dumbbells and Donuts, a client of mine. Eric the Redbeard, a client of mine. I love you all. Thank you. We joked about it, but let's try put a collaborating for a cookbook. This man, Martin, has some of the most amazing photos. So if you want to put together the ultimate cookbook, I'm up for it, right? We could give you recipes from Team Massive, and I'd even be happy to pay. I would have no problem paying you for the ingredients. And then you would just make them and take photos of them. That would be awesome. That way we could get everybody on Team Massive to contribute. We could decide as a team, do we want this in the cookbook? Do we not want this in the cookbook? And you could also have your own meals in there. That would be fun. Let's see. I gotta approve. Okay, I just had to approve a client. I had to approve a comment. YouTube did something funny. Eric, bulldozer cluster wood choppy chops, cable wood choppers. Yeah, why not? I mean, are you gonna do one side and then the other? I don't like personally. I don't like doing rest pause stuff on unilateral. You certainly can. Just make sure you rest long enough in between sets. You're into the MMA world. Probably some good benefit to doing something like that. Does Massive Omnibus have programs that teach you how to program as you advance? Absolutely. It's going to have every program, and it's going to teach. One of the biggest things about the Massive Iron world is I'm going to teach you how to program. For example, it's going to have the rule of 2/3 to help you outline a basic structure for how many exercises based on weekly volume you want to use to put into chest, back, quads, and delts. It's going to have all the tools to teach you how to build your own workout. It's going to completely equip you how to build your own workout. You're going to have my workouts, but I'm also showing you, as I've been showing you in my content, how to build your own workouts. So absolutely. Is John Meadows' short video on trap bar deadlifts? I have not seen it. He doesn't lower to the ground. Okay, so I haven't seen the video. So I am speaking specifically on this comment. This is a generalization, but it is relatively accurate. Understatement. If you do not lower a bar to the ground, when you pull up, it's more of your hamstrings and lower back. When you unload the weight on the ground and you initiate the pull, it's going to be a little bit more upper back, yoke, and quads. Upper back and quads. Does that make sense? So when you're doing an RDL and you're driving your glutes back, it's going to be more hamstrings and lower back. When you unload the weight and pull off the ground, it's going to be more upper back and to a degree quads. Does that make sense? So I don't know what John Meadows is doing, and I don't know the context, and I don't know what he's using it for, and I don't know what he's trying to target. Barbell Beauty. I'm going to start a bulk in July, but I'd like to do something different with deadlifts. I was thinking about doing the twos protocol. For me, it depends on how healthy your lower back is, right? So you might also consider a periodization cycle of 2 weeks to 3 weeks. I hesitate to do 4 weeks because that can get a little bit long. But you could do something like a cycle where you cycle intensity, which is weight, but you could also in that mix cycle progressions, okay? Progressions are harder to easier variations of the deadlift. So what do I mean? You could have a 3x4 week 1 on the deadlift from the floor, right? Week 1, hardest variation, floor deadlift. What would be some lighter progressions? You could have a hex bar week 2 or a block pull from 3 to 4 inches off the ground for maybe a 3x6. So you're going a little bit relatively lighter and you're going to a more lower back friendly progression. And then on week 3, you could increase that a little bit. You could go to a higher rack pull, or instead of pulling off pulling from the floor. You could just do something like pendley rows and power shrugs, or just power shrugs to work the yoke to give the lower back a break and then return to your heavy week. So you could do something like a 3-week progression like that. Steven, how's it going, Klein? I'm glad you are tuning in. Do you see protein powder as unhealthy? No. Unhealthy is more a bigger picture. It's more of a bigger profile, right? Unhealthy is more nuanced. What is a good program and a bad program? Do we look at one variable or do we look at the big picture, right? So, what is a good diet or a bad diet? Some people will say having protein powder is bad, right? Those are the protein powder is bad people, right? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not laughing at them. I'm just laughing at them. So it's a big picture. Like if you only use protein powder and didn't use animal-based foods, you're missing out on nutrient density. Unhealthy is more of a bigger picture. Does that make sense? There are unhealthy foods, but we have to consider this a scale: good, better, best, and crappy. Like let's look at drinks. What is the best thing you could possibly drink? Let's just say it's water, right? Let's say it's mineral water because you're getting in some electrolytes. Let's just say that's the best thing you could drink. Okay, what's the worst thing you could drink? Well, outside of alcohol, which I wouldn't consider the worst because it has some redeeming qualities, if you will. Maybe like a pure sugar drink, like a Mountain Dew. Water, mineral water, and then you have Mountain Dew. It's just sugar, flavored sugar, right? So there, in the middle, you might have something like this. It's got 10 calories, not the best, a little bit, a Frankenstein creation created in the lab, but not the best, not the worst. Is this perfectly healthy? No. Some might consider this unhealthy. But in the terms of a balanced diet and the bigger picture, we have to really look at the bigger picture. So I hope that helps. Con, if it was already at the weight that I wanted, would it make sense to recomp? No. Recomping, if you try to maintain, why are you stuck at that body weight? It's a question. Why are you stuck? We are looking at the mirror. Okay. You like what you look in the mirror? That's fine. Focus on the mirror, not the scale. You can't expect to eat at calorie maintenance level and lose fat. It does not work that way. Even if you go into the gym, you're like, I like 172 on the scale or whatever your number is. Let's say it's 172. You're going to go into the gym. I'm going to work out like I've never worked out before. Right? In your brain, you're like, I'm going to work out like I never worked out before. And in your brain, you envision gaining 3 to 5 pounds of muscle mass. Why? Let's say you could do it. Why would the body then lose an equal 3 to 5 pounds of muscle mass? Unless you specifically altered your calories to make sure you stayed at that scale weight, which would probably require you to be in a slight calorie deficit, making it even harder to gain that mass. Now, some people that are absolute noobs can do a little bit of light recomping where their scale weight doesn't go up. But why would you make the process harder? Now, there are certainly periods of time where we don't want to bulk or cut and we just want to hold our weight, like during summer. You look good headed into summer. You don't want to bulk. You don't want to cut. You just want to stay where you're at during the summer or whatever season you're in life. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. But as a long-term strategy, if you want to build muscle, you eventually have to get back to the bulk. Stop worrying about the scale. Stop tethering yourself to an arbitrary number on the scale. Tether yourself to what you see in the mirror. Prime. What is the best way to build muscle and strength? There is no best way. Best is what I teach on this channel. Best is consistency of training, hard training, consistency in nutrition, progressive overload, a reasonable selection of exercises, patience, etc. There is no best. Best is a 5 to 10 year period of time. Best is what you do over the next 5 to 10 years, and there's going to be seasons of training 3 days a week, 4 days a week, maybe even 5 days a week. There's going to be minor injuries come and go. There's going to be stress come and go. Best is not a number of days per week, and it's not a specific workout. Best is doing what you can in that season and getting as much out of it as you can. Harris, good evening, Team Massive. How long should we wait after a workout to take a shower? I'm not laughing at the question. I'm just laughing at the potential variation in the stink factor, right? Right. I don't know, man. That's out of my lane. Do you. Depends on what's going on, where you got to drive, what you got to walk, what you're doing. Do your thing. Carlton McBean, a client of mine. Good morning from the road. Good morning, Carlton. I have redesigned my workout to an upper-lower split over 4 days with an optional 5th day for arms. Do you think I should also include an overhead press on the extra day for extra volume? I'd have to see the program. When you are doing 2 upper days, this is just the way I structure it as a starting point. You don't have to do it this way, but it's something to think about. You would start upper day with like a bench press variation, and then you would follow up with a dumbbell shoulder variation, overhead press. On upper B, you would start with a barbell overhead press variation, seated, standing, military press, push press, behind the neck press, whatever you want. And then you would follow that up with a dumbbell bench variation. So by the time you get to the junk day, you've already done a barbell and dumbbell variation for overhead and bench press. Does that make sense? Then in the context of the program, if you want to add in an extra shoulder exercise, let's say on your upper B, you want to do a machine shoulder press instead of a barbell press. Could you do a barbell press on your junk day? Well, it depends on, are you coming in fresh? Does it make sense in the context of the program? You would have to see the program if that makes sense. Is the omnibus different than the hardcover book you're working? It is the hardcover book I'm working on. It's the same thing. It's the omnibus is a 3-book series. Basically, it's going to be about 3 books. And it's not any different. It's the same thing. Brought many questions once again. Bring it on. That's what I'm here for. What are some common bad habits during a bulk that make the subsequent cut? The biggest bad habit is there's 2 big habits: inconsistency, maybe 3, lack of planning, and turning a lean bulk into a fat bulkathon. Always having a lot of frequent days where you're over in calories. This is very, very common. I'll see 1 out of every 10 bulks. Someone will come out of the gate 8 to 10 pounds in 4 to 6 weeks. Like, slow down, Charlie. Slow down a little bit. So we can't come out of the gates hot. In many ways, a bulk requires as much, if not more, discipline than a cut. Because during a cut, you can go under, you can be a little bit looser, you can have a high day every couple of weeks or whatever, as long as you're losing weight. A bulk, we have to stay in our lane. We have to plan. We can't go too reckless. We can't gain too quick because then we're going to get fat fluffy and we have to cut again. So a bulk has like limiters. Does that make sense? In the bigger context, anything that works your grip is going to contribute to bigger forearms. So forearm growth is going to be from a combination of pressures in your workout program, and they can certainly be a part of that equation. If I feel physically fine, anytime we see the word feel, what do? We circle it, right? We circle it because it might be important. I feel physically fine, but mentally drained. Should I? No, not necessarily. I'm not trying to be an asshole and unsympathetic. I do not care that you feel drained. They feel drained too. I feel drained. We all feel drained. Now, every now and then, is it okay to give yourself an out card once every 3 months? Yeah. We're not trying to create rules. We have to be really careful, though, about how we feel, right? Because the process does not care how you feel. The process commands certain steps. So, with that said, it's okay to have an out card every now and then, right? Make sure you save that for when you really need it, because giving your way an out of a tough situation can turn into a bad habit really quickly, right? So I'm not telling you not to, but you have to keep yourself in check. You have a bad day. One of the best things you can do is just make yourself go do the first set. I feel like crap. My girlfriend ate all my tortilla chips. Right? My boss is a whatever bleep. You feel like crap. You want to go take an out card. One of the best things you can do is just go to the gym and do the first set. Why? Because there is a 95% chance once you do the first set that you're just going to cruise along, and by the end of your workout, you're going to feel a lot better that you did it. So the only thing I'm saying here is that you can take an out every now and then, but you need to keep yourself in check because it can become a bad habit. And before you know it, you're a big boo-boo, baby. Taking out cards over this, that, and everything, making excuses. So does that make sense? You're assuming you're going to drag through a workout. Usually the opposite happens. You do your first set, and then that's really suck. And then you do your second set, and it's a little better. And then you wake up like 3-4 sets into it, and you're just rolling along. Now, there is a 5 to 10% chance you're going to feel like death, and on those days, you can shut it down early. Is it possible to manipulate training to look like, say, an Olympic lifter? Olympic lifters lift for a specific outcome, and that is to be stronger on the Olympic lifts. Olympic lifts are not the best muscle builders, and this is, as my mom would say, is going to get somebody's undies in a bunch. But I know this lifter does this. If they were the best muscle builders, they would be conventional muscle building. This is not to say, let's be reasonable, folks. This is not to say you can't use some for fun. This is not to say they can't contribute in a minor way to hypertrophy. This is not to say you can't use variations for hypertrophy, but we have to keep our feet grounded in conventional hypertrophy. The guys out there that are just, triggered, that want to leave a comment right now, but so-and-so has squats, right? Yeah, well, you know what? 99.99% of the people using conventional hypertrophy do not have quads from using conventional hypertrophy. You can do whatever you want in the gym. You just need to understand that if Olympic lifts were the best for hypertrophy, we would be reliant on them. Strength builds strength. There can be a place for everything, and you can certainly use lifts if you enjoy them. Now, are you saying to look like an Olympic, like the physique, or train like an Olympic lifter? I got caught up on that, and I realized my mistake. If you want to look like an Olympic lifter, you are looking at the creme de la creme, right? Does Olympic lifting build physiques like an Olympic lifter? Or do people that tend to excel at Olympic lifting have certain types of physiques? It's the same with basketball. It's the same with sprinting. Does sprinting create bigger quads, or do sprinters with bigger quads tend to excel up to the top? That's for us to figure out. If you want to look your best, you have to follow conventional hypertrophy. There's no other way. There's no way to dial in exercise choices to look like an Olympic lifter. There's only one path. Does that make sense? What determines an exercise's progression potential? It's inherent within the exercise. I'll repeat, it's inherent within the exercise. It has to do with leverages. It has to do with the history of the lift and what we know from a practical standpoint. Let me explain. Let's take the pull-up. Let's say 25% of lifters are just born with perfect leverages for the pull-up. And they're able to move up in weight, and they have a greater degree of progression opportunity. And everybody else is kind of mediocre and they don't have much of a cry. There's still a progression opportunity if they work on it. Side lateral raises, we know from history, have a limited progression opportunity. Why? Because we don't see people doing 150-pound dumbbells on side lateral raises with strict form. We know you can build a big bench. We know you can build a big squat. We know you can't build a big side lateral. It's inherent in the lift. My wife's home and the dogs are going crazy. How similar are abs to smaller muscle groups? How similar are abs to smaller muscle groups? Like, I don't know. I'm never overtrained. I mean, I've trained my abs hard, but every muscle group's going to recover a little bit differently depending on how you train it. So you can, if the question is, can I train my abs more frequently? You have to adjust everything based on what's occurring in the real world. So some people want to train abs every day for the sake of training abs every day, thinking there's going to be some inherent benefit. And I'm not saying that's the nature of your question, but we have to kind of ground things, in that. We have to start at a reasonable place and adjust based off something that's reasonable. We don't like to overwork some people want to overwork the biceps to build big arms. And what happens is we can encourage overuse injuries, that sort of thing. All we can do is adjust based on what's happening in the gym and what recovery is doing, etc. I've never gotten the feel for how to use leg drive. No, don't worry about leg drive on bench. Don't. It's absolutely useless. Most people are doing it wrong anyway. They're pushing up and it's pushing their butt up, and it's not really. You don't need to do this, guys. This is one way that powerlifting has totally tainted the world of muscle building. It's even tainted the world of strength building for the bench press in the off season. If you focus on all these 22 form cues and setting up and getting in slight arch and getting tight and getting packed and getting this packed and that packed and having a little bit of leg draw, it's harder to sustain that during a set. Not only that, but it's completely unnecessary for base building strength. The world of hypertrophy has been tainted by powerlifting. All we need to do is have our feet planted and have a good base so we're not moving our feet around and encouraging looseness, which can transfer stress to our joints. And from there, we just need to control the weight down. That's it. If you can train 6 days a week, is it better? We don't worry about training days per week. It's arbitrary. We worry about weekly volume per body part. Are you progressing? Are you recovering? And we evolve based on in that lane. We don't just toss out arbitraries for everybody. If I could train 7 days a week, is it better? Depends on the structure of the program. I can take a program that I use 4 or 5 days a week and turn it into a 6-7 day a week program and have the same weekly volume. So it really depends on the program. If we're just trying to build out a program so we can punish ourselves as much as possible over 6-7 days, is that optimal? Generally not. I mean, we need to be training hard. That's optimal. You start with something reasonable and you train hard. And then if you feel there is an opportunity to add in biceps or triceps work or chest work, then you add it in. You start with a place of reason and you judge recovery and you judge results, and then you add things in. Does that make sense? You don't just, start arbitrary. The magic is in the adjustments. Some days after I train, I can't really sleep deeply. Sorry to hear that. The only thing I can say is do your best to keep good sleep hygiene and maybe take something that might help you to sleep. I don't know. I don't know when you train. I don't know the specifics. Some people just run into that. So I'm sorry to hear that. Which athletes have the most impressive physiques? I don't really know, man. You look at, even though basketball players are taller, they tend to have pretty good physiques. Baseball players these days, not a lot of the average baseball player that takes care of themselves does. I think for naturals, a lot of the major sports athletes in those sports have pretty reasonable physiques these days. I don't really know, man. I mean, the MMA fighters tend to be a little bit on the small side for me. So that's my general opinion. When trail running, if you run the hills at zone 3 and the rest at zone 2, will it be enough to? No, that's not how you want to do surging. All that's going to do is spike your heart rate. I don't really recommend running hills for general trail running. You want to keep your heart rate moderated. I mean, if you want to do some general training work, you're better off doing hill repeats once a week, not every day. We're trying to create hypotheticals. Will it be enough to increase speed over time? I don't know. That's not the way it's done typically. Typically, trail running is typically done for endurance. So in that world, if you're just out for a 20, 30, 40-minute run and you want to run up hills, by all means, go ahead. If we're talking about training for endurance, you want to keep your heart rate down because that's essential when it comes to, surviving a long-term run. So there's a lot of nuance here. Eric, thank you for answering our questions. Thank you for asking them. Squat lover here. How do I balance between frequent barbell back squats and you aren't going to get overuse injuries? Wait, I read that as 3-4 sets a week. Sorry. Squatting 3 to 4 times a week. How do you balance that with getting overuse? What you do is what is happening in the gym. Okay. Are you recovering? If not, you need to add in more rest days or train less frequently, or add in some progressively easier variations or some lighter weight, right? Let's say you're using the same weight each day and you're picking up aches and strains. We have to adjust one of the variables. Maybe a lighter day every other day, 10, 15%. Or maybe an extra rest day here and there. We have to adjust variables and see how the body feels, if that makes sense. So that's really all you can do. Hold on one second. All right. My wife got home and I had to check on something. All right. During your plant animal based phase, what did you eat post workout? Normally I just ate dinner, whatever I was having for that day. So that's really as simple as it gets. I have a single arm day where I do 6 hard sets on biceps, triceps, and forearms. Do you think this is lacking to continue? I have a single arm day. I got to read through this again, where I do 6 hard sets on biceps, triceps, and forearms. So we have 18 total sets. Do you think this is lacking to continue to make arm gains? I've really never done more than 6 sets a week for biceps, maybe 6 to 9 for triceps. That's fine. It really depends on the bigger picture. How many days a week do you have to train? Are you getting in your major compounds? What do you have left? So nothing is inherently lacking. We have to, look at the bigger picture, if that makes sense. What do you think about the romantic love today for the golden era of bodybuilding? It's been around for a while, I'll tell you that much. When I started my forum muscle and brawn way back in the day, there was a lot of the same reverence and respect and kind of glamorization, if you will, of that era. Are these full body routines really so potent? Nothing's so potent. It's just the way they trained. Nothing is magic but hard training, my friends. I have seen every corridor and seen every lifter, metaphorically, not literally. I've seen it all, been everywhere, done everything. Everybody training at different ways. And the one common thread between all of them is hard training and passion. Do you have a stalker? He hasn't really been around much since I put out my stalker video, but maybe this will cause him to come back. How much caffeine do you drink in a day? Maybe 600 milligrams. I think. What's in a Monster? I don't know. Is it 200? I think 600-ish. How often do you require? I never require a client to send form videos. I ask. Clients can send 1 form video a day, 7 days a week. That is what I politely ask them to do. Beyond that, I really struggle to keep up. So I like to look at all my clients' lifts over time so we can make sure they're maximizing all their lifts. I don't require them to do so, but I highly encourage them to try to send in at least 1 video a day. Carlos, what is your favorite routine of all the ones you have tried? I'm doing the massive lube from one of your videos. I'm glad you like it. That's a really nice routine. A lube is basically taking the upper posterior. The upper posterior, you have 2 upper days and you have 2 posterior days. The posterior days have legs and back. because having 2 straight leg days sucks. So we kind of put leg and back together, and that can be very difficult. So the lube keeps the upper days, but it also has a leg day and a back day. So you have leg, upper, back, extra upper, or lube. A really fun program. A lot of my clients like that one. Torso limbs is fun. The program I think I enjoy the most outside of the way I've trained conventionally is rest pause. That's definitely probably my personal favorite. Will a 4-day-a-week body part split be optimal? We have to get this out of our head, folks. Optimal is hard training. Optimal is hard training. Optimal is hard training and consistency. Optimal is hard training and consistency and a good exercise selection. Optimal is hard training, consistency, and a good exercise selection and nailing nutrition. It's not about a training split. Anybody that says that is just drinking the Kool-Aid. Even the experts that have looked at this stuff will agree that the reason why the full body studies showed favor was because they inherently had a volume bias. They had more volume than the body part splits. And when we looked at when volume was equated between frequency and body part splits, there's no difference. Over the course of 5-10 years, it doesn't matter what split you use, guys. These voices out there are trying to convince you that it's so incredibly important. It's not important. It's not important. Train hard, use a good exercise selection, use progressive overload. Optimal is that. Okay? I've been training 5, use whatever split you want. It doesn't matter. Optimal is the things I just told you. I've been training 5 to 6 days a week for a long time. Are you training hard, though? I can train 5 to 6 days a week. If you're training hard, what are your strength levels? I'm not saying you aren't training hard, but I want to know more. I want to see your pictures. I want to know what your strength progression is. And here's why, because I don't know you, but there are a lot of people out there that say, I'm training 5 to 6 days a week. And I'm not saying this to you. I'm saying this in general. So what? I can train 7 days a week. But if I'm training hard, I generally want an off day after 2 days because it's intense. So we don't care how many days a week you train. We care how hard you train. Okay? It doesn't matter why are you worried about a body part split? If you are training hard 5 to 6 days a week, stick with what's working for you, right? Why are you even worried about it then? I'm just asking that in general. But if you're not getting the results you want, then you have to focus more on hard training. It's about hard training, not the split. It's about hard training, not how many days a week you train. You start where you want to start. 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, doesn't matter. You start where you want to start, days per week. You start where you want to start with whatever program you want. It doesn't matter, okay? You have days of the week and you have the program. Start with what you want. It does not matter. Hear me, folks. Does not matter. Start where you want to start. Focus on having a good exercise selection, progressive overload, going to the gym focused on making every set count, getting everything you can out of every possible set, as many sets as you can. Nail your nutrition. Constantly work on improving your form so you're getting more and more out of every rep and every set. Be consistent, be patient. From here, we must be willing to evolve our training. Let's say you start with 6 days a week on a push-pull legs and you feel toast and you need an extra rest day. Insert an extra rest day. That's the magic. Evolving your training based on needs. This is the most underrated pillar of success, and this is one I talk about in my new book, Massive Omnibus. It doesn't matter where you start. You start where you want to start. There's no magic days per week. There's no magic training split. And any mouth breather out there that's telling you otherwise is full of shit. They're full of crap for whatever reason. They've drank the Kool-Aid for this, that, or the other thing. It doesn't matter where you start. 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days a week. It does not matter. Push-pull legs, full body, upper, lower, body part split, torso, limbs, upper posterior, drunk Russian, whatever. Does not matter. Does not matter. What matters is when you go into the gym, you have a good exercise selection, progressive overload. Are you trying to get the most out of every set you can? Are you crushing your nutrition? Are you trying to maximize your exercise form? And in this realm, we then allow ourselves the freedom to evolve our training. We don't stick to a program because we have to stick to a program. Hey, I don't like penalty rows for 3 sets of 8. I'm going to move them to 4 sets of 6. Push-pull legs, I need an extra rest day because I'm not recovering after my leg day. Whatever, add the rest day. This is the magic. When all those things are in place, your consistency, your nutrition, your exercise selection, progressive overload, you're trying to get the most out of every set. Then you start to adjust the variables. You have a recipe. You have the base ingredients for a recipe. Are you hearing me? And here we're going to dial in the recipe to perfect it. We don't worry about the split. We don't worry about sticking to the split. We don't worry about sticking to the days per week. I started with 3 days a week or 4 days a week or 5 days a week and this, that, and the other program. If you tether yourself to where you start, you're unable to evolve to where you need to go. Are you hearing me? Doesn't matter where we start. It matters where we're going. What is happening in the gym? What is happening in the gym? What is happening in the gym? You evolve your training based on that. I'm not recovering. Add an extra rest day. This day's too long. Tweak it. Move some things around. Move the pieces around the puzzle. As long as the pillars of success are in place, you're training consistently, you got a good exercise selection, you're progressively overloading, you're trying to get the most out of every set you can, you're trying to maximize your exercise form, you're controlling the weight, you're nailing your bulk, you're nailing consistency. Then we move the pieces around the puzzle, we move the pieces around the board, and we evolve our training over time. Does that make sense? That is optimal. Sorry, I meant if it's okay to eat my last meal at 6 and then the next morning. No, it's not a big gap. That's fine. The body's not that fragile, so don't worry at all. Don't worry at all. As long as you're nailing your daily calories, you're going to be fine. The body's not that fragile. I don't want you to have beef, but why do you make it seem like lifting is super simple, but then Dr. Mike always says it's super complicated? You can go wherever you want to go. It's not complicated. Do you think rest in between sets is complicated? Dr. Mike aside, if you look at my philosophy and you study every lifter over the last 60 to 70 years, you realize that split doesn't matter. Even specific exercises don't matter. The pillars of success matter. There's no magic rest in between sets. There's no magic sets of exercises. There's no magic program. It's not complicated. You are watching people that enjoy, for whatever reason, trying to analyze, and inherently their world is going to make it seem complicated and confusing. It is not complicated and confusing. Why do I make it seem simple? Because it is. It is simple. There is no magic rest in between sets because the rest in between sets has to serve as hard training. In the middle of a set, the demands of every exercise are going to be different. Squats are going to kick you hard. Pec deck might not. Dumbbell rows are going to kick you hard. Lat pull down is probably not as hard. You're going to feel different on every given day and different on after every set. But the one truism that stands is that if you go into the next set feeling physically and mentally ready, then you are able to get the most out of that set you can. Do you believe that training is an art or a hard science? Do you believe there's a magic rest period for everyone at all times, on every day, regardless of the stress and the sleep and how hard the last set was and the inconsistency or the variables of hormonal variables or nutrition variables? Do you believe there's an underlying perfect rest in between sets at all times, scientifically? Or does it make more sense that it's more nuanced and more of an art? And as long as we're reasonable, the focus is on hard training. Do you want it to be complicated and technical? I got to ask you, why are you watching this channel? What are you searching for? I'm not condemning anybody for watching him. I'm asking, what are you guys searching for? What are you searching for? I'm not trying to convince anybody that my way is better than anybody's. You get to determine that. Okay? What I'm trying to tell you is that I have spent my life studying lifters from the last 70 years. And here's what I found. There's no one split that matters. There's no one magic group of exercises that matter. There's no days per week that matters. There are reasonable areas to be within. If your split is reasonable, if your weekly volume is reasonable, if your totality of your exercise selection is reasonable, if your progressive overload approach is reasonable, then it's super simple. Not easy, super simple. Not easy. The hard thing isn't formulating a program. The hard thing isn't formulating a progressive overload scheme based on science. The hard thing isn't developing a rest in between sets that's magical. The hard thing isn't scientifically analyzing the perfect time under tension, rest in between sets, combination of exercises, recovery from training splits, or any of that stuff. The hard thing is the training. If the variables are reasonable, which they need to be, then the hard thing is the training. Science can't give you the key on how to train hard. It can point you in the right direction. The history of lifting is science. What do we learn from the history of lifting? Doesn't matter how you train, days per week or program. There are lifters getting results on all types of programs. Lane Norton's fat, push-pull legs, push-pull arms, legs, torso arms, torso limbs, upper posterior, full body, body part splits. Program doesn't matter. If we try to pretend like days per week matters, we're completely downplaying the fact that lifting takes a long period of time. You're not going to lift the exact number of days per week every week for 10 years. That's nonsense. What matters, if we look at the history of lifting, is that did this lifter, for the most part, at least 80, 70% of the time, try to get everything out of every week? Try to get everything out of every set. Not perfect, because we're not robots and we can't do that perfectly. But we do that 70 to 80% of the time. Did this lifter get a lot stronger than they are now when they first started? Excuse me. Are they a lot stronger now than when they first started? Yes, all of them are. It's not about strength, though. It's about training hard, because if you're training hard, plus ones or strength flows from that, right? If we look at the history of lifting, that's the biggest scientific pool we have. And what it tells us is that there are certain parameters we have to play within. And if we are within these certain parameters, then we just have to train hard, progressively overload, nail our nutrition, nail our consistency, improve form, and we are going to be fine if we remain patient. That is science, folks. Looking at a one-off study that goes against this makes no sense. You want to look at a pool of 9 studies on rest and try to find something that goes against the fact that we have 70 years of lifting that says rest periods don't matter as long as they're reasonable and service the next set. If we have something that tries to tell you that there's something more important than resting until you're ready to attack the next set, that's not science. That's pseudo-science. Why do people put out this why do people put out this stuff, content? I don't know. They like it. They like looking at studies. There's nothing wrong with looking at studies. There's nothing wrong. I don't watch his content and I don't know the conclusions he comes up with. But I will never steer you wrong. Because we will always look at the commonalities of what has occurred in the last 70 years of lifting. That is what the core of my philosophies are about. That is why I don't dogmatically tell you to train this way or that. 3 days, 4 days, or 5 days a week. Pinpoint perfect rest periods for every exercise, because it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. I'm not saying science is bullshit. I'm saying when somebody creates a dogma that it's 2 days a week because the body's super fragile, or 3 days a week and it has to be full body because frequency, or it has to be this type of volume per week, or it has to be this exercise, or it can't be that exercise, or it has to be this specific progressive overload scheme, or it has to be that specific rest in between sets. It's bullshit. It's bullshit because we know when we look at the history of lifting that there's variance within a range, a reasonable range. And as long as you're in that reasonable range, you just have to follow the things that matter. Training hard, progressive overload, being consistent, working on form, and nailing your nutrition. And anybody that steps up and tries to prop up something as science that goes against this is full of shit. It's not science. Turning 40 in January. Hope to be well on my way by 45, following the massive iron principles. Let it rip, man. Just take one day at a time. I have nothing against anybody, folks, but I am here for you, and I'm here to lift that veil in front of your eyes that's being propped up. I'm nothing against science. I have a lot against pseudo-science. I have a lot against things that call themselves science that are distractions. What pisses me off is when these people waste your time by getting you to chase magic days per week or frequencies or whatever. That's what pisses me off. That's the enemy in the massive iron world. People that waste your time. Time is the most valuable thing we have, and when they waste your time with unnecessary complication, they are the enemy. All right. Johnny Miles, we go from that to this. Should women in gym wear less revealing clothes? I'm not even going to get into that, but I'll tell you what. In this day and age, if I'm in a commercial gym, I'm this. Men, women, whatever, dogs, furries, Zers, purple hairs, bull rings in your nose, smoke coming out of your ass. I'm head down, eyes forward. I'm in the gym for results. In this day and age, I'm not passing judgment. I simply do not care. If there's a furry over here, a Zer over there, a purple hair bull ring, gender neutral fish creature from the planet Xenon, I don't give a shit. Y'all play your own video game. My video game is fucking gains. Why always 3 per? There's not always 3 sets per exercise. It has to do with weekly volume. 3 sets is a reasonable place to start. Okay. It's a reasonable starting point, but it's not a rule. One thing to think about if you look at, like, from a pragmatic standpoint, we have to look at weekly volume. Okay, let's dive a little. I was almost a little bit too dismissive on this, but let's look at it. Let's look at weekly volume because that's most important. Let's just look at chest and say we're going to do 12 chest sets per week. You can do 4 exercises for 3 sets each. You can do 3 exercises for 4 sets each. Which would I prefer? Generally, I'd have a tendency to go with 4 exercises for 3 sets each because I get in a little bit more exercise variety. So I'm going to kind of, is one more magic than the other? No. Not in the long run. You do you. But I'm going to have a tendency to go with 4 exercises for 3 sets, just in that 12 set lane. And we can use whatever arbitrary number we want. But I'm going to have a tendency to do 4 by 3, 4 exercises, because I get slightly more exercise variation. Now, if we take the next leap and go to 6 exercises by 2 sets each, it's feasible, but now we could be adding in too many exercises where we're kind of reaching to add in exercises. That might not be the best. Like all of a sudden we have to add cable crossovers because we're just trying to add in a 6 exercise. So there can be some middle ground in between there. We could do some for 3 and some for 2, and that's fine. So we want a reasonable degree of exercise variety per week. We want a reasonable weekly volume. Okay. You're in that lane. You pick the volume that works for you based on how many days a week you can train, the volume per body part. We try to find a reasonable, challenging, reasonable exercise selection, exercises that we enjoy and that challenge us. And then from there, you can tweak the sets per exercise you want. You can do 4 for some, 3 for others, 2 for others. Doesn't really matter. Just keep that reasonable weekly volume. We're kind of doing that Tai Chi, that reasonable weekly volume, right? And that reasonable exercise selection, and you're going to be good. Thanks for everything. Ever notice feeling your chest on pull-ups? Yeah, I can actually notice my chest on a lot of back exercises sometimes. I can notice them a lot on deadlifts and sometimes on rows because there's some counterbalance, the mechanisms involved in counterbalancing, etc. I'm not a pull-up guy, but I can notice it on some back exercises. Are you using a smartwatch? I use a Coros mostly when I run. I used to, I think the first 3 months of the year I wore it day in, day out. The time's a little bit off because I just recharged it. But I use this when I run, the Coros. It's decent. I had a Garmin for 4 years. I really loved it. Beyond that, this will track, my sleep and my stuff, and does a really good job. But I used a Whoop for like 6 months. I really just get tired of having something around my wrist at all times. I was wondering if I can manipulate volume and do more muscles that pop. That's just normal hypertrophy training. You just have to get everything strong. Don't try to overthink it. Those guys are big in every possible way. Can one build big or at least proportional traps no, we don't want to take that approach to building any muscle group. We don't want to have a singular approach when it comes to building a muscle group. What I mean is that overheads will hit the traps. It's all part of, there's some involvement of the traps in the neck, obviously. But if you want to build the traps, a lot of this has to do on the weekly time you have the train and, the availability. You want to work in some you want to get in your overhead work for your delts, and you also want to get in your conventional trap work if you can. John, is a 315-pound bench impressive? Absolutely. Anybody that says it's not impressive, that's gym elite. Not many guys get under 200 pounds to get a 315-pound bench. It's a lot easier when you're eating more calories. That's the only reason. So that's very impressive. Anybody that says it's not is just either living in a fantasy world, being a dick, or trying to elevate their standards or bench press. Big Sam, I had 1,000 calories due to a work emergency. Does it take your body a few days to get back into a surplus, or can you progress and still going to the next? Don't overthink it. Life is like that. You're going to have off days. Just get back on track, right? Just get back on track. If something throws you off and you go a little bit over, a little bit under, don't worry about it. If you go a little bit over, it's not, you're likely just adding a little bit of water weight. If you go a little bit under, you're likely just flushing a little bit of water weight. Just get right back on track. That's the best advice I can give you. Big Justin Jones, if I squat twice a week, should both days have different loads? I would say if you're going to squat twice a week, the structure has to make sense. There's different ways you could do it. You could use the same program twice a week if that's your thing. You could do a lower rep and slightly higher rep variation. There's no right or wrong. It really comes down to what excites you. It really does. I asked the arm day question earlier. I have 2 torso days, chest, shoulder, back, where I do heavy vertical and then horizontal pushes and pulls and leg days. In that, when you have the 2 torso days, I would definitely have the arm day because it's going to be hard to get in your arm work. You have a lot of stuff because you have dedicated leg days. One thing you could do, I forget the original question, but you could do biceps on leg day and then Well, you said about adding an extra shoulder work. I believe you could do that on your arm day, but you just need to rest between your torso days. Hi, Steve. Which one of your splits would you recommend for working out Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday? You could do the upper posterior, which has 4 workouts, and you could rotate between them. The only thing you can't do is you don't want to do biceps the day before a pull day. So you might have to push biceps. If that comes to Saturday and Sunday, where you're doing an upper on Saturday and then Sunday you're doing a posterior, you might have to push biceps to Sunday. You could also do the upper limbs upper. So that is upper day. You do chest, back, shoulders on Wednesday. Saturday, you could do arms and legs. That way you only have 1 leg day a week, but you have arms, which are lighter to balance it out. And Sunday, you could do another upper, but your arms are going to be fatigued going into your upper, so that probably wouldn't work. Torso limbs, you could rotate between. But again, you're going to run into an issue where, you have arm fatigue headed into your upper. I'm thinking through this because we want to be smart about this. I would torso limbs, my upper posterior would have that challenge. It really might be better to do almost like not really a full body. You'd really have to have a day in the middle where there's no interference, where you're doing a lot of junk work that doesn't impact Sunday's work. So here, let me try this. Okay, I'm thinking through this. I would say upper limbs. Okay, upper limbs. What would I do? I would probably do Wednesday, chest, back, shoulders. Saturday, chest, back, shoulders, because you have 2 rest days. And then Sunday, do legs and arms, because then your arm work, you have time to rest between Wednesday. So I'd probably do upper limbs, and limbs is legs and arms. Sorry for the long-winded thing. I wanted to think through this. Tire Patch King. I started torso limbs, shield, wheel, and guns. Shield, wheels, and guns a few weeks back. Great challenge. Torso day can be brutal, indeed. It's like a mini full body. You and Jeff nailed it. Regular cardio is like a natural pre-workout. You're always on when you hit the weights. What's your opinion on the sweet spot between weights and cardio? I've been doing this my whole life, and I found the body acclimates. I would say cardio, you don't want to do less than every 3rd day. I think 3 days a week and 4 days a week of lifting, and you can merge those together. Maybe have 1 day where you do lifting and weights, 4 or 5 days, 3, 4, 5 days lifting, and 3 days of cardio. If you like cardio, it's probably a good merging. Daniel White, when it comes to progressive overload, should I aim to increase the weight or reps? You don't do it on a time basis. Focus on having a progressive overload approach and maximizing every set and allowing that progression to come naturally from that. The demands of every exercise are different, so the progression rates are going to be different. So there's nothing we can, generically say to expect this, that, or the other thing. Every exercise is going to be different. You focus on hard training. Can you get a good muscle and strength workout in while keeping your heart rate? We're not doing muscle and strength training to get our heart rate up. We're doing it to build muscle. There'll be some ebbs and flows with our heart rate, but we don't worry about our heart rate when we're lifting. We're worried about our muscle building. If you have concerns and you want to get in some cardio to raise your heart rate, do that after you lift. But don't forget the point of why you're in there lifting. All right, guys, we got about 6 questions left. This is the last call. We're 2 hours in. I've always worked hard and saw slowing progress, so jump to watching these guys for advice. I get it, man. I'm not being critical for watching them. All I'm trying to do with you guys is steer you in the right direction. I don't want to feud with anybody. If anybody disagrees with the history-based approach and the reasonable boxes, then you should never follow them. I'm not saying this is a case of anybody. I don't follow their philosophies. What I'm telling you is that if we look at reasonable splits, reasonable volume, reasonable exercise selections, reasonable progression approaches, if anybody pulls you from a box or middle ground of reason, they should be unsubbed, unfollowed, because they're pushing something that goes against the history of lifting. When you're in a bulk, how much alcohol do you consume a week? I haven't really officially bulked forever. When I was lifting hardcore my first 3 years, I never drank, really, maybe twice. During the 17 years of my last marriage, I drank like 5 times. And now that, I mean, I like some beer. Beer has really changed, over the years, and we have more selections and more options. I like scotch, but I don't, when I watch a movie, sometimes I barely get through the second drink. I have some pretty high alcohol, level drinks. They're generally anywhere between 7 to 18% beers. And I could show you what I have. They're 12, 13. Most times I don't get through the second. I'm not a heavy drinker. I might have a scotch and 2 beers, 2 IPAs. I probably do 4 drinks a week, I think, at max. That's just me. Dips are the upper body squat. No, I know that sounds nice, and they're a great exercise, but I don't think it's as simple as that. Honestly, the whole thing falls apart for me because in coaching, I've learned that the squat is so incredibly hard to master that not as many people are getting as much out of it as we think. So it's kind of a piece of paper that's fallen into the puddle for me, the whole thing. How does a sleep tracker work? That's outside of my pay grade. I don't know how it determines your deep sleep, maybe your breathing level, maybe how much you move. I don't know. It's outside of my pay grade. What do you think about doing shrugs on an incline bench? Yeah, you can do that as a variation. Absolutely, as long as it works for you. What do you count as cardio? I don't live in a cardio world. Okay. I'm not being dismissive of the whole thing. I do know that activity is the most important, general activity. Do what you love. Walk, run, hike, swim, bowling, dancing, whatever. Do what you love. Do the activity you love, martial arts, whatever. We do know when we look at healthy people that there are a lot of people that live for a long time that are very active that are not getting their heart rate up. So we do know that, yeah, it's probably okay to get your heart rate up. But just take care of yourself with food. Do the forms of exercise you love. Get out in the sun. Get out and swim. Do whatever you want to do. Don't overthink it. Just have fun and be active. Fat chick in a barn. Got a Jet later. Have a good weekend. Justin says my dog is Jet, called Jet. And Johnny says, thank you, sir. Thank you, guys. A wonderful live today, and I hope you guys got a lot out of it. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope you will come back. This is my passion. It's not, I coach for a living. I'm not here to push dogma. I'm not here to push one way. I'm here to help you guys see the bigger picture. And I will fight to the day I stop breathing because this is important to me. You guys are important to me. And it is important to me to never have your time wasted. So thank you guys so very much for giving me this platform to help other people. All right, you guys have a wonderful weekend. If you're having a long weekend, have a wonderful long weekend. And I am out of here.
You're not almost there. You're not almost there.